It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. Of course, we begin at home as President Bola Tinubu has announced the creation of a new Ministry of Livestock Development as part of a broad effort to address the recurring clashes between herders and farmers. These conflicts have led to violence and instability in various parts of the country. Our State House correspondent Adesua Omoruan has more.
Nigeria's livestock sector has long been plagued by conflicts between herders and farmers, inadequate infrastructure, and underutilized economic potential. These issues have led to food insecurity, loss of lives, and economic stagnation, particularly in rural areas. But today, a new initiative aims to turn these challenges into opportunities. President Bola Tinubu inaugurates a committee to revolutionize Nigeria's livestock sector.
Who says the solution is far? I say no, the solution is here. With these distinguished personalities, we've solved the problem. We've identified the model for livestock management. It is done in other countries, in other climes, successfully promoted. It created great economy and empowerment for ordinary people. This sector will boost agricultural productivity, enhance export opportunities, and stimulate economic growth by fostering a robust value chain that benefits farmers, processors, herders, distributors, and consumers alike.
In addition to the committee, the president announced the creation of a new ministry.
This presents a unique opportunity also to delineate and establish a separate ministry called the Ministry of Livestock Development. We develop the economy, give people opportunity to excel.
President Tinubu also called for support from state governments and appoints Professor Atairu Jega as deputy chairman. He, however, thanked former Kano governor and current APC national chairman Abdullahi Ganduje for organizing the National Conference on Livestock Reforms.
At this junction, I will appeal to remove every taint of partisan politics from it. I assume the chairmanship of the committee as the president, and appoint Professor Atairu Jega as my deputy or co-chair. This is not about politics. This is about opportunity. This is about our nation. The governors are hereby represented. Any law that might inhibit the promotion and the actualization of our objective, the Attorney General is here. Please give it a priority. And budget and economic planning is there. Find a budget head for it.
The committee was formed after receiving 21 recommendations from the National Conference on Livestock Reforms, including creating the new ministry.
We definitely cannot appreciate Mr. President enough for finding this as a very key source of social stability and economic prosperity in tandem with their renewed hope agenda.
The Presidential Committee on Livestock Reforms has been assigned the task of implementing comprehensive changes within Nigeria's livestock industry. Although no minister has been appointed yet, the future minister will join the largest cabinet in the country's history. Whether President Tinubu's initiatives will effectively address the ongoing farmer-herder clashes remains to be seen. Adesua Omoruan, Arise News.
Very good.
All right, the largest cabinet in history continues to grow. Your thoughts, Rafiu?
I thought this was the same people that said they were going to implement a Rosselló report to reduce the number of ministries. Obviously now, they've forgotten a Rosselló report. I mean, it shows that sometimes I struggle. God sees my heart. I really want to look for a ray of hope from this government and defend them vigorously. But they make matters very hard. Maybe yesterday, I had the spots to defend this government, but today again. But I have to be objective. These were the same people that are talking about cost of governance. As we speak today, we have unfunded deficit worth trillions in this budget. We don't know where the money is going to come from. The Guardian reported that yesterday. As we speak, Reuters reported that it's difficult for NMPC to get Forex to be able to pay their financial encumbrances. Hence, we can relate that to the fuel scarcity that's going on. But the government now thinks that solving the problem is livestock ministry. It wouldn't solve the problem. It will only create another bureaucracy where people will collect budgets. That means they're going to increase the supplementary budget now, and it will not solve any problem. Because until we realize that it's not by politicization of cows in this country like we have done, and that's why I was not surprised when some ministers were fighting for the rights of cow. Until we realize that cow or cattle herding is a business, then we will never move forward. And it must be practiced semi-intensive or intensive. So it's not by creating the Ministry of Livestock. It is a business. That's why you see that with all the meats we say we produce, we're not first 10 in terms of production of beef in the world. So what will be the way forward? The way forward will not be this Ministry of Livestock. It's just going to be another bureaucracy. The reason for those farmer-herder clashes is political. Except we have the political will to solve the problem of people that are using farmer-herder clashes to grab land of other people, we are not going anywhere in this country. Like they say, because I've been told we need to wrap up, like they say, if you don't want to solve a problem, you create a new committee or create a new ministry. Nigeria is not ready to solve this problem.
Okay. One of the major arguments that we've been pushing in this country is that we don't need a bloated bureaucracy. The creation of a Ministry of Livestock Production will seem to be adding to the bureaucracy. Now, the president has not told us when he will create that ministry and who will be in charge of that ministry. But what we know is that he has considered to the Renewed Hope Livestock Reform Implementation Committee that a livestock ministry will be created. So number one question, yes, appropriately, about bloated bureaucracy. But the more political side of it is to be considered, and it is as follows. Now, in the past few weeks, President Tinubu has been under pressure from politicians and certain groups in northern Nigeria about livestock production, about the direction of his government. They are the ones leading the campaign about the Samoa Agreement. They are the ones preaching in the mosques, preaching in other places that President Tinubu is trying to support LGBTQ. Before then, there have been other pressures on the Tinubu government about, his attitude towards the North, to demonize his administration, to say that it's a pro-South government that is running. It's President Tinubu, by acceding to the idea of a Ministry of Livestock Development, conceding to the North. Is he succumbing to blackmail? That is the other question that will have to be raised. Now, Ganduje is the one who is the chairman of the Renewed Hope Implementation Committee, the committee that made the recommendation. President Tinubu has now said, no, Ganduje should step aside and he should be replaced by Professor, which professor is that now? Professor Jega, Atayiru Jega, also a Fulani from the North. And the way they have defined it, it's about farmer-herders conflict, which also shows that it's about the North. Hence, I raise the question about blackmail. Because when you are talking about livestock, yes, in other jurisdictions in the United States, fish is not included under livestock issues. Poultry is not included under livestock issues. But in southern Nigeria, there are people who eat pork. Pork is included in the United States. Are they going to include people who also have to take care of their pork and provide mutton, pork meat? Are they going to involve them in this livestock development reform? Well, you know, what I see here is that one is the president succumbing to blackmail. The second point has to do with about agriculture. Now, one of the major pillars in President Tinubu's livestock transformation plan, you know, is part of the means to, you know, address agricultural issues. Okay, is the Tinubu administration trapped in a trial and error mood? The people of the North, they have complained now about grazing reserves, about grazing routes, so he has given them a Ministry of Livestock Development. Look, the people of Akwa Ibom will very soon begin to complain about dog meat and the right of dogs to also survive within the Nigerian environment. Are we going to create a Ministry of Dogs? Or will this proposed Ministry of Livestock Development take into consideration the right of dogs to also survive in Nigeria as dog meat, as 404?
Locally.
As locally, as the Ondo State people will call it.
Locally.
Now they say they are doing a Ministry of Livestock Development. No, we should not make laws, we should not create ministries to serve the interest of particular regions. Laws, ministries, bureaucracy should be established in the interest of the entire nation. Because before you know it now, the people of the Niger Delta will say, well, they may not consider fish as livestock in America. But here in Nigeria, we, the people of the Niger Delta, we think that fishery should be part of livestock. So this is the limits that you reach with a trial and error approach to politics. And if President Tinubu thinks he's pacifying the North, well, the easiest way I can recommend to him is that perhaps this Ministry of Livestock Development, we should also have a southern idea who will worry about pork meat, who will worry about dog meat, who will worry about fish. Then perhaps the ministry will have been created in the national interest. There is an idea that I think they should perish. We don't need a Ministry of Livestock Development. Why don't they do a Ministry of Railways? Things that will affect the lives of all Nigerians, as we have in other parts of the world. Livestock development is not strategic enough, and all the controversies that are on the table have not disappeared. Where would they get the land for grazing reserves, for grazing lands? The state governors in the South particularly will not grant land. And President Tinubu should not just in trying to please the people who have been criticizing him, people who have been holding clandestine meetings to sabotage him. He should not think that he's pleasing them by creating a ministry to serve a regional purpose. That's my take.
All right, very passionately expressed, and I know a lot of people share your views and your position. Now let's look at agriculture in Nigeria. It's divided into 4 subsectors: crop production, livestock, forestry, and fishing, which all fall under the Ministry of Agriculture. In 2014, heads of states met in Malabo, where they declared that they would commit 10% of annual budgets to agriculture. Here in Nigeria currently, our budget spend on the Ministry of Agriculture is 1.5%. We're sitting at about 362.9 billion going towards agriculture. Now, when you break that down, 252 billion of it is capital budget. 102.1 billion is going to personnel, and 8.1 billion is for overhead costs. So you already see the cost of running a ministry, let alone having to set up a new one. However, when you look at that capital budget of over 250 billion is where we had the controversy surrounding 20 billion that's allocated towards constructing roads and various other infrastructure projects in Akwa Ibom State. You then have about 700 million that's going towards street lights, solar street lights in rural areas. Yes, some people may justify that and say the Ministry of Agriculture is also the Ministry of Rural Development. However, when you look at the budgetary spend, the capital budget spend of the Ministry of Agriculture, are you telling me that there was no way to sit down with those numbers and take a look at how much of that can be extracted for livestock, which falls under the subsector of agriculture? Now, when you look at the potential of livestock in Nigeria, one is so confused as to why suddenly it has become an issue. Of course, we know last month there was a heated debate in the Senate about the restriction of the movement of herders, because the motion was put forward that herders and their cattle should be restricted to their states of origin. And we know what happened there, where some people were saying that, oh, cattle should have the rights of movement across the state, across the nation, just as citizens of Nigeria. It was a strange debate, which has now been followed by this declaration. So the politics of it is not making sense. The numbers of what we've already done with the Ministry of Agriculture is not making sense either. Now, you look at the potential. Currently, Nigeria spends $1.7 billion annually importing dairy products alone. But when you look at the value chain, at the end of the day, at the core of this is the issue of grazing, is the issue of community ranching, or rather proposed solution of community ranching. It comes back to agriculture, because what the cattle graze is grass. What are we doing about this? So going into the creation of a Ministry of Livestock when already we're struggling to even meet up with the demands of a Ministry of Agriculture is definitely a decision that's going in the wrong direction, especially given the antecedent that we're not even spending the agriculture money judiciously. Now, we go to the next story, which is breaking news. The remains of late Senator Joseph Wayas, who was president of Nigeria's Senate in the Second Republic, 1979 to 1983, have arrived in Abuja for final burial. His remains, which arrived aboard British Airways Flight 083 en route Abuja, were received at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport around 5 a.m. by members of the Who is Who in Northern Cross River State and have been conveyed to the National Hospital. Wayas, who died in December 2021 at a London hospital following a protracted illness complicated by COVID-19, was reported that his corpse had been abandoned in a London hospital.